This story depicts the Nutty Putty Cave mishap in which a 26-year-old caver named John Jones unfortunately lost his life in 2009. His demise is a sobering sign of how hazardous exploring caves can be and why we ought to follow safe practices consistently while spelunking. Nutty Putty Cave, situated in Utah, was first investigated in 1960, and it immediately became popular for its tight and elusive paths, contours, narrow squeezes. Various pieces of the cavern are named appropriately: the birth canal, the aorta crawl, the scout eater, the maze. Nutty Putty Cave is an aqueous cavern with a length of 1,355 feet and depth of 145 feet. John had a lot of spelunking experience, yet not as of late. The vast majority of his spelunking was done when he was a youngster. John's dad habitually took him and his more youthful sibling Josh on trips all over Utah. John Jones had a huge family, being born into a family of 5 boys and 2 girls. He likewise had 16 nieces and nephews. John was a sincere Christian, and as per his family proclamation later, he was known for his pleasantness, brilliant sense of humor, solid, hard-working attitude, an unquestionable love of others, an amazing skill to connect with youngsters, an adoration for and immovable confidence in the good news of Jesus Christ, and his obligation to his family as a wonderful husband, father, son, and brother. At the time of the mishap, John was working towards becoming a pediatric cardiologist, and his significant other was pregnant with their second kid. On November 24, 2009, the siblings John and Josh chose to revive their affection for exploring caves and picked Nutty Putty Cave as their next journey. It was 8 p.m. on Wednesday, only a couple of days prior to Thanksgiving, when they showed up at the cavern site. They were in good company. 9 additional companions and colleagues had gone along with them, so by caving principles, it was a pretty big gathering entering the Nutty Putty Cave. Everything went smooth the first hour or so. The party had investigated the biggest room in the cavern, suitably named the Big Slide. Before long, John, Josh, and 2 of their companions chose to respond to a call they had caught wind of, in particular going through the birth canal, a restricted and testing way that ultimately opens up into a bigger room. John went first. He wriggled forward for quite a while, yet saw no bigger region. He kept on crawling forward, yet the limited section didn't reach a conclusion. All things considered, the press made a sharp descending turn. Without much hesitation, John pushed forward, maybe seeing the passage got more extensive at the base. However, it was at that point John had made a crucial error. This mistake was made roughly 50 feet prior. No one can be sure from the clashing sources on the web whether John entered the birth canal and inadvertently crawled into the scout eater, or if he had missed the birth canal altogether and slithered into another tunnel called Ed's Push. Presently, Ed's Push doesn't prompt a bigger room. It doesn't lead any place, at least no place a 6-foot, 200-pound man can fit. Ed's Push has 4 unfamiliar ways at its end, yet they are excessively small for a person. Nevertheless, John continued to push through until he was unable to proceed. To make things worse, he had made his way into a crevice that went almost straight down, which made him incapable to back out on his own. The thin hole he was caught in was estimated to only be 10 by 18 inches. Stuck 100 feet underneath the ground and somewhere inside the cave, all he could do now was call back to his brother Josh. Josh, who was following him, was the first to track down John. Shocked by how John was positioned, Josh attempted to haul him out, yet could only inch him up a bit. When he let John go, he slid right back in. John was left with one hand stuck under him and the other constrained in reverse. His feet were free, yet were of little use as gravity pushed him down. The 2 of them said a speedy prayer, and Josh rushed back to the ground as quick as possible, gradually squirming out of the tight section and hurrying to the surface. When outside, he immediately called for help while their companion remained with John. The first to show up to help, Susan, was a nearby rescue volunteer who promptly dropped what she was doing when she got the message on her pager and raced to the scene in her Toyota. She showed up at some point around 12 p.m. It had already been over 3 hours since John had been caught somewhere inside the cavern. Little, lithe, and speedy, Susan made her way to John. "Hello, John, I'm Susie. How's it going?" "Hey, Susie, thanks for coming," John said, "but I really want to get out." Over the next few hours, dozens of people showed up, all hoping to do anything they could to save John. The group immediately schemed up a variety of ways to free him. They thought of everything, even lubing the walls of the cavern, until they decided on utilizing a rope that goes through a progression of climbing calms, with one end of the rope tied around John's legs and the opposite end pulled by the team. Simultaneously, they likewise took a stab at penetrating away pieces of rock close to John, yet the hard material and the abnormal position made boring away the stone sluggish and difficult work. After another 60 minutes, they were only able to carve away 2 or 3 inches of rock. John's body position additionally muddled things. He was caught virtually upside down, with only his feet peeping out of the crevice, and the roof overhead hanged so low the group couldn't simply haul him out, as his legs would disrupt everything. Time elapsed as heroes worked wildly and tirelessly, but their first try with the climbing cams proved useless. They then attempted to utilize a rope pulley framework, securing the pulleys with bolts, but everything was made more troublesome by the limited space of the tunnel. Despite the fact that there was a huge group of volunteers, emergency teams, and a rescue helicopter outside, only one person was able to work in the narrow space at a time. All the while, John's condition was starting to get worse and worse. He had now been stuck for hours and was starting to have some trouble breathing, and his heart needed to work twice as hard against gravity to push the pooling blood out of his brain. Eventually, they brought a 2-way radio into the passage and managed to get it down to him so he could talk with his wife, who was just outside the entrance. They were both flustered, however. They exchanged words of encouragement and comforted each other. John had now been stuck for 19 hours. Things started to look favorable when the group began hauling John out. A 8-man team all pulling as one. John was in extraordinary pain at this point, so they made continuous stops. In any case, each time they pulled, they figured out how to pull John up a smidgen more. In the wake of pulling him upwards the 3rd time, John was at last lifted sufficiently high so he could visually see the person nearest to him. He looked drained, his eyes were red, and his face was grimy. However, he appeared to be in good spirits. "How are you?" "It sucks. I'm upside down. I can't believe I'm upside down. My legs are killing me." The hero saw that despite the fact that John was griping, he had a grin plastered on his face. They had one more rest then continued pulling John up. He was practically out. At this point, when the rescue team pulled John for the 4th time, things took a turn for the worse. The whole group fell as the rope went free in their grasp. The closest person got hit hard in his face and blacked out briefly. At the point when he came to, he could only see a cloud of dust. When it finally settled, he could see the stone ledge close to John's legs where the rope was tied around had shattered and the closest key bolt had broken free. They soon realized not only had John slid directly down the gap once more, this time he was significantly further in the wedge. The man closest experienced serious facial wounds from getting hit by the metal carabiner and couldn't proceed. He needed to switch places with his father, who was also working with the team. At the point when he arrived at John, he understood that John's breathing was substantially more shallow and less incessant. He was battling to stay alive. The hero called for John, yet got no reaction. Frantic, he attempted to bring down himself into the fissure to put the rope around John's midsection, yet got stuck himself. After getting himself free, he bored another opening for the pulley and crept out of the cavern, depleted, to be supplanted by one more hero who arrived at John, yet couldn't get a response from him. Not too long after, a medical responder slithered into the passage, and at 12 a.m. November 25th, John was pronounced dead. He was only 26 years old. A sum of 137 people tried everything they could to save John over 27 hours, but in the end, they had to leave brokenhearted. The following day, the specialists established that it was excessively troublesome and perilous to get his body out of the cavern, so Nutty Putty Cave will always stay the last resting place for John Edwards Jones. About a week later, authorities chose to close Nutty Putty Cave to the public forever. John's family had a plaque placed on the entry of the cavern in his memory. We appreciate you tuning in. If you enjoy these true stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay updated on our latest grim tales. Share your own close calls in the comments below, and remember, true tales can be truly twisted. Until next time, stay curious.